Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most important things that is happening in this ninth wave and in the evolution of consciousness. And that is the realization that it's all inside of you and me and everyone else. Each of us is literally and experientially the center of the consciousness of what we call God or the divine from the perspective of each of our worlds. Each of our worlds revolves around us, and it is God's perspective through us that we experience our world. It's all inside of us. Every person we meet, every circumstance we encounter, everything that happens in our life, whether we label it good or bad, whether we choose to resist it or to flow with it, to accept it or reject it, everything but everything happens within us. We are microcosms of the macrocosm. And the whole world, all of reality, all of creation is inside of us. We live in a holographic universe. We live in a universe that is something similar to the Mandelbrot set, where everything keeps repeating over and over and over again. Although you can look at each individual part and think that it's separate, but as you draw back, and in the Mandelbrot situation, as you draw in, whether you go back or in, it's always the same thing when you really see the whole picture. And I realize that this is a difficult concept for many people to get when we've been so well trained in the idea of separation, that I am this, but I'm not that. I am me, but I'm not you. And we fail because of our limited experience and, in many cases, our unwillingness to see the connection. I hate it when I lose my train of thought, but I just did. It's difficult for us to grasp this because it's so different from what we've been taught and from what we've experienced and from how we've identified and labeled ourself and our reality. And that's really an important thing to get. So I'm glad I took that little aside and was led down a different path. We label things. We have such a strong tendency to label things. And in labeling things and putting words on them to identify them, we separate. And it's almost impossible for us not to do that. People say to me, Ron, you keep talking about unity, and you keep talking about them and they and what they are doing. Well, it's almost impossible for me as a human being not to speak from that, because that's been my experience throughout my life. Even when I'm coming to realize that it's all happening inside of me. That I am not simply this body. That I am much larger than this body. That this body exists within a much larger and invisible framework of who I am. And it's at that level, that larger framework, that I am interconnected with everyone. But this dance that Ron Van Dyke is doing in this body is connected to everything else, and everything else outside of me reflects me back to me. When I meet someone and I see characteristics in them that either excite me or make me feel apprehensive, either of those feelings is something inside of me that's being triggered by my perception of the other person, and how I have labeled those things determines how I'm going to respond to them. If I meet someone and they don't feel good to me. There's something in me that I'm still not at peace with. The only people that I'm going to want to reject are people that I don't identify as part of me, that I can't see or perceive or allow the connection, my connection to them. So I am still in a place of fear when I do that, because this is something I don't like and I want to be separate from it. Anytime I'm trying to separate from something, I'm fearful of it. I'm acting from separation consciousness, and I'm pushing it away. I'm not in my highest essence, my highest capabilities, my highest potentiality of loving. And that's okay, because this is a process. This is a dance that we're experiencing. Experientially, it's happening in a time-space sequence. One thing after another after another. That's called process. And so it's a process. But in another sense, it already happened, all of it. That's a hard thing to get when you're in the time-space continuum. It's a hard thing to grasp. But we're beginning to see it. And oftentimes we cannot get our minds around it. It's difficult to get our minds around it. And what I'm choosing to do more and more and more, and sometimes I fall back into the old way of seeing and speaking, but what I'm choosing to do is to get my heart around it. And to say, okay, this doesn't feel good. I don't know what it is about this person, but they give me the creeps. I don't like this situation. I don't like this emotion. Okay, I accept the fact that that's what I'm feeling right now, but I have a knowing, a higher knowing, that says, but wait a minute, this is a gift, and I'm going to choose to see the gift in it. I don't know what it is, and it may require some effort on my part to discover what it is, or maybe just a willingness to say, okay, show me when it's time for me to see. Let me hear it when it's time for me to hear it. And the universe is really, really good at doing this, at bringing things to us when we are ready to hear. There's an old cliche. When the student is ready to hear, the teacher will appear. I've seen it in my own life time and again. Did I always understand what the teacher was? No, because oftentimes I rejected it because it wasn't in my frame of reference. And I didn't resonate with it. So I rejected it. When I was a fundamentalist Christian, just like fundamentalist Christians in this day and age, I rejected things that I didn't think went along with what my belief system was based on the Bible. It was a natural thing for me to do. Then I realized, hey, wait a minute. The Bible doesn't contain all of God's answers. God is living, speaking now. It's all inside of me. It's not about me honoring and worshiping and loving Jesus. I can do that. There's no problem with me doing that. But the will of God is for me to be my unique self. It's not some arbitrary thing that comes down and is handed down to me from some other thing outside of me, even from God. Because God isn't separate from me and I'm not separate from God. I'm not separate from anything. It's all happening inside of me. God's will for me is to be me, the unique self that was created in love, to express my particular and peculiar aspects to the world in my life, and to connect with people from a place of loving acceptance. And that is the truth. The place of loving acceptance is the truth. Because it's who each of us are created to be. Each of us is created to be a unique representation, an individualized aspect of Creator God. So be your unique self and recognize that everything but everything is inside of you. And that everything is a gift to you, that you have brought from the higher part of you that you may not yet recognize, but there's a higher part of you that is both within you and surrounds you at the same time. It is infinite. Allow the message that you can receive from that higher self that seems like it's outside, and from that inner self that you know is inside of you. And both the in and the out are you. The higher and the lower, the masculine, the feminine, the light, the dark, all pairs of opposites are in you, and you are one with all that is, and all that is what we call God. I leave you with that this morning. Thank you for listening. In fact, let me just say that I am really, really appreciative of all the love that I am receiving from around the world. It truly amazes me how Spirit has allowed me to connect with people in such a short period of time as I share my heart with each of you. I truly love you. Even if we haven't met yet, you are inside of me, and I am inside of you. And that is love. Namaste.